Actually, I was going to say a few words about electronic reporting today and about the improvements that we have done in Docentric. Now, I'm not sure how much experience have you got about electronic reporting, so I will say some basics and then I will just move on to the features which we added in Docentric solution, because probably some of you have already worked with electronic reporting, but for those of you who are completely new, this will be just the information what we have done on top of standard. Now, first I'd like to thank Ludwig and Lone for the invitation to speak today. Ludwig and I met at Dynamics Minds conference in Portorož, Slovenia in May this year, where we were holding a joint presentation on electronic reporting, and there he invited me to do a presentation in this meetup, which I gladly accepted. Since I mentioned Dynamics Minds and also Liz mentioned it, let me say that this was really a quite unique conference. In many respects, Ludwig can confirm that. This was the first time that we at Docentric organized it, and it was really quite a lot of work, but it was worth it. And the attendees' positive feedback is actually encouraging us, and we're going to organize it again next year. The dates will be known in August. And I think I can say that it will really be a great conference, just as the first one, maybe even better. And I invite you all to attend if you have the possibility to do so. Now, just as far as Docentric is concerned, we're going to organize it again. And we consider ourselves community-first, community-driven, community-friendly organization. We also offer a free edition of our product, which is used by thousands of companies worldwide. And we also publish quite a lot of community content, as I mentioned earlier. And we just organized this conference, and the one next year is going to be probably also a success. So let me say now a few words about myself. I'm senior technical consultant with Docentric. I have been several decades in IT. I've been wearing all kinds of hats in technical and executive positions. I started working with electronic reporting in 2019 when Microsoft announced support for configurable business documents. I'm also the author of several written and recorded videos that are found in our blog. And here and there, I also speak at conferences. And the last information is that I will also be speaking at Community Summit North America in October this year in USA. And I will present a community session about tips and tricks for customizing electronic reporting. Okay, so the agenda for today is actually, I'm just going to show you some basics. Then I will include Docentric enhancements. Afterwards, we're going to have a quick summary. Maybe there will be some questions. We will discuss them there. I would just ask you maybe not to ask questions at this moment because I have this presentation and not really so much time. So I would like to show it the way as I have intended. Okay, some basics. First of all, electronic reporting is all about configurations, starting with data model, which basically defines the data structure that you want to get out of the system. And then you have model mapping, which defines rules how and which data to get, how to process them, where to bind them to the data model. And in the next step, we have the format configuration, where we have the possibility to output the data. Typically, this could be some data exchange format like XML, or maybe the template in Excel or Word if we talk about configurable business documents. There we also have individual format mapping, which maps the data model with the data in the template, and basically the output is then sent to whichever template we select, or whichever format we select in the end. Okay, now where do we get electronic reporting configurations? Typically, the best approach would be that we get the configurations which are already prepared. Microsoft has got really a ton of configurations. I think current count is something like 4,700, and they keep adding them on daily basis practically. So until now, the way how to access this general electronic reporting, or JER for short, configurations, where to find them in the shared assets in LCS library, but this will be deprecated. So currently we can use RCS, Regulatory Configuration Services, where again we can find them. But as I have heard from some sources from Microsoft, there will be some changes here as well. So I will not speculate on that. But the last way, which is always there for you, is to manually import configurations, which you, of course, need to get somewhere first, either from your colleague or maybe from one of the sources I mentioned earlier. Okay, now to start customizing, we need to have some things ready as well. And these are configuration providers. We need to add our own configuration provider because Microsoft configurations are stored on Microsoft configuration provider, but they cannot be modified. To modify them, we need to open our own configuration provider, and that's where everything starts. And then the process of customization actually is that we derive from the existing configurations. Derive basically means copy-paste. And when we do that, first we start with the data model. And in the data model, then we add the missing data schema. Then we move on to model mapping, where we start with the model mapping provided by Microsoft. And then we usually point to our derived data model, and then we make modifications in model mapping, telling where the data sources are for our data. In the next step, we do the same thing with the format. Again, we derive from the existing format and using our derived model and model mapping, and then we design the template or whichever document we want as output. In the next step, we maybe need to change some setting in order to be able to run draft configurations while we're still developing it, maybe run the debugger if the data that we are expecting are not there. And finally, when everything is ready, we set the status to complete and practically modify the electronic reporting destinations as needed, and basically the customization process is complete. Okay, now I have prepared a demo for this. I'm not going to show you customization process because that will take too much time, but I'm going to show you what I have already prepared in the standard electronic reporting. So the electronic reporting workspace actually can be under the workspaces. So here I have it. I have already put it under favorites so that I quickly get it. So here I have my configuration providers. In my case, I'm using Docentric next to Microsoft, which is there by default. And reporting configurations, which I'm using here, basically are for the sales invoice. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the sales invoice base model, the one that's provided by Microsoft, and also my derived version, and I will explain what I have done and how I have done it. So when I have installed the configurations, by the way, if you got a configuration as XML file, you can actually load it using Exchange Load from XML menu item. And this way, first you start with the model and then model mapping and finally the format. So basically this invoice model mapping, and sales invoice Excel are the Microsoft configurations. Basically, I see that the configuration provider is Microsoft. They are in completed status. So that tells me that, okay, they are in the shared status. Pardon, I clicked it in the wrong place. And this tells me that they are ready to be shared. And then I have done my modifications. Actually, if I first show what is the standard format looking like, let me now set everything up so that I will be running the standard. So I will just open the accounts receivable and I'll go to print management. By the way, electronic reports are only available for print management documents. Here I have the customer invoice. I have several settings. I will be running one for line of business 3100. And here currently I have the SSRS report selected, but I have also the sales invoice Excel. So this is standard Microsoft electronic reporting format, and I'm going to be using this one at the moment. And I will go right away and quickly run one report. I'll just go from sales orders and I will find some order that has been invoiced and then go to the journal, for example, this one. And I will print it from the journal using print management. So now we will see how this document looks like that was provided by Microsoft. Okay, I have also debugging activated, so I could actually start the debugger if I wanted. And this is the result. So that's the standard document that Microsoft is providing. And now I wanted to customize it a little bit. Basically, I wanted to include product images. So under the line items, I want to include product images if product images exist. Otherwise, I just want to just show it the way as it is now. Okay, so this time I have now then started by deriving a new invoice model. Actually, the deriving process is initiated here. So you tell what you want to derive from and give it a new name. And basically, this way you start and create the derived model, and then you go ahead and modify it. In electronic reporting, modification is done uniformly using the designer. So this designer actually is going to open the structure. And as you can see, this is the invoice model. And this invoice model is quite complex, as you can see. I'm not going to go into details. I'm just going to find the part which I have customized. This is in invoice line. So the invoice line, basically there I have included 3 fields. The first one is item image, which is of type container. This is going to contain the image as container that will be needed for binding it to Excel template. I have added another item image of string, which basically will contain the base 64 string. This will be needed for Docentric customization later on. And I have also included a Boolean field, which basically just checks is the item image there or not, and I can use it as a trigger whether I will display anything in the template or not. So these are the 3 fields which I have added here in the customization. And now I will go to the model mapping and show what I have derived there. So here I have been using my derived data model, and I will show you now what I have done, because here is where the real work begins in electronic reporting, because now we have to tell where do we get the data from. So as you can see, it's much more complex. For those of you who are not familiar with what I see here, so these are the data sources. So basically where I get the data from, and this is the data model. So this is my structure, which is going to consume this data, and I actually bind the two. But first, we need to prepare the data sources in the right way in order not to get into some sort of troubles. And basically, as you can see, this is mainly done by Microsoft. I have just done the tiny part. Mainly, we have so-called calculated fields. All this $sign text here basically points to calculated fields. And as you can see, they are using all kinds of logic. Now, what I have done here, I needed to first include references to one table and one class, because I will be calling some methods on those items. That's why I needed to have a reference, which I have here. And then in the invoice lines, so this is the calculated field for the invoice lines, there I have added those 2 references and basically included them in the form of the formula. So here I am now preparing the data. And basically what I do, sorry, I will start with the event table. I need to get the image of the item from the item that's on the sales invoice. So I need to get the reference to the event table, because from there I can go to the docref table in the database, which contains attachments. And basically event table through relations is related to documents, and I need to use it here. That's why I have inserted it. And edit formula will show me what I'm doing. Basically, I'm just executing the find function on the event table, and as a parameter to this find function, I'm actually passing the item ID from the current invoice lines. So this is giving me the reference to the event table. And in the next step, where I am here for the image reference, so this is the class, which basically is consuming this calculated field from earlier. And so this is parameter event table from earlier, which is calling another method that is returning this image. But actually, this is all executed using this class and this method on the class. Now, as a functional consultant, you probably wouldn't know these details and what you need to call and how. Here you need a developer, even though one of the promises of electronic reporting is to empower a functional consultant to be able to get data without developers. Theoretically true, but practically developers would probably still be needed here and there to explain you such details as I'm showing you here. Okay, so let me go back. This is now providing the data for me. So I would get the thumbnail here of the image, and that's exactly what I need. And now the last part is I need to bind this to the data model. And this binding is relatively straightforward. So I just find the content. Here is the item image as container. And basically, again, I'm using a formula where I basically just call this calculated field, and then I go through relations. This is one-to-many relations to get to the documents. And then on documents, there is a method get file content as container, which I call, and this will return me the content of the documents of the attachments for this item ID that is pointing through this event table. So that's the idea how to read the container part. Now, reading the string is a bit different. So let me show you how this is done. So here I just have a condition, and basically I'm now referring to image reference calculated field, and there is a parameter there, which, well, not parameter, the property there, which is containing the value of that record. And if the value is base 64, that means, okay, yes, this is an image, I can use it. And in that case, I read this image. Otherwise, I just return the empty string. If the attachment was something else, if it was not an image. So that way, I get the content which I need, and I bind this content to this item image as string. And finally, just is item image present basically is just a simple expression, which again is checking is event table and relations in the documents. So this is returning the list. If this list is empty, that means no attachments. In that case, I return false. Otherwise, I return true. And this is going to be a trigger for my template so that I will know whether I should display it or not. And that's the model mapping part. So this is the part which you always need to do when you want to customize any kind of data, whether you're using standard electronic reporting or whether you're using Docentric. Practically, the model mapping and data model needs to be there, and it needs to provide the correct value. Now, in standard, you have the format which you need to customize, and basically I have customized it here. So the format again is derived from the base format configuration, and then I have modified it. Basically, if I now open the designer, I have the attachments here, and basically the attachment that I have got from the standard, I have downloaded first, and basically here it is. It looks like this. This is the Excel file, which serves as a template. And as you can see, this Excel file looks like this. To read this Excel file and how the electronic reporting basically works with Excel files as templates is on the base of named cells and name ranges. If I take a look what kind of namings I have here, you see I have got lots and lots of them. And I have the whole ranges, which then contains its content. And on the minimal level, I have, or on the detail level, I have the label cells, and I have the value cells. So basically, this is date time label, and this is date time value. And basically, using this naming, electronic reporting then knows how to map the, let's say, these cells in Excel with the data model which I have specified. And of course, if I want to modify anything, I need to modify this template so that it gets correct values. I need to enter these names, and I need to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So if I just do small modifications, like in my case, when I have just inserted a new row here, then it's relatively easy. But if I wanted to, let's say, modify this by placing images elsewhere. For example, let's say that I would want to have image in one corner and I would want to have some data content here. Or if I want to change the structure of the data that is in the head of the document, in that case, I would have quite a bit of work, and it would really, take days before I would finish the template. Now let me show you my final template, which I have modified. So this is the one which I have prepared for today. And I will also turn on the grid lines and headings so that you will be better able to read it. What I have done here is basically I have inserted this new row, and I have also named it. It's called invoice lines item image, and this is the conditional, let's say, range, which I will be showing or hiding depending on the content of the image. And here I have inserted the picture, which I have also named, and this will be replaced with the actual image at runtime. So I have done this part of customization, relatively simple customization, and after I have done it, I have then imported this new attachment in this configuration, and now I can see, if I expand the nodes, I can see all these ranges. This is actually extracted from Excel, and I see all the named cells and ranges, and basically I am then binding them when I come to the mapping. So first I need to check if I have my changes here. I see that my customization is included, so this is the range where I will have the item image row, and this is actually the item image picture, which will be replaced. And if I now go to the mapping, I see that I already have the mapping done. What I have done here is basically I pointed to this cell, this named cell, and I have found the invoice lines information about the item. This time it was item image string, and basically I have, no, actually it's the container because this is Excel. So I have then used binding to bind these two elements. And I also then set this conditional content. Basically, this one was relatively easy because all I did, I simply used this field which I have already calculated that has true or false, depending whether item image is there or not. So that was the change and the configuration. And once I have that ready, I can go ahead and modify my print management settings. So instead of running this standard Excel, I will now be running my Meetup Excel template. And okay, now I have done it, and let's try our luck. Working with electronic reporting is always an adventure. You know where you want to go, but you're never sure if you're going to get there. Those of you who worked with electronic reporting know what I said. Okay, let's try our luck. Okay, now, since I didn't provide the electronic reporting destinations, as in the previous case, the file destination was selected and the result has downloaded as Excel file. If I open it, I'm able to see these images, and basically, yes, everything works the way as I expected. So if item image is present, it is included, otherwise is not. Okay, so that's as far as the standard is concerned. Now let me show you what Docentric adds to the story. Maybe I could just mention anyway that in order to get the results out with electronic reporting, you need to define electronic reporting destinations. So basically, you define them like this. And if I want to define electronic reporting destination for the one which I have just created, I would go and select the new one. I would find this format which I have created. So this would be the Meetup Excel, and then I would say new, and I will say something to screen and select what I want to do. And then I will set where I want to send it. Let's say screen, enable it, and basically now it is going to send it to screen. I can also convert it to PDF if I want to. Basically, now I have set that I want to send it to screen. I also have the possibility to send it to other destinations, so like email, archive, file, Power BI, which basically is SharePoint, and printer. So after I have done this, I can now go ahead and run it again, and now we should see it on screen. Now, electronic reporting destinations are not as powerful as we are used to with SSRS reports and with print management settings there, because they have overrides, they have all kinds of possibilities in settings, and you really have quite a bit of flexibility. With electronic reporting, you don't have that much options, but okay, you can use what you have got. Now we see that this result is here. Now it's in PDF and it is sent to screen. So that is working. And I will now show you how Docentric approaches this. And I will just have a few slides to give the comparison theoretically, and then we will go practically. Okay, click here and let me quickly show this. The enhancements which Docentric has prepared are the following. Firstly, the whole hassle with the format configuration is replaced with tried and proven Docentric templates designed in Word. Any design change can be immediately visible on live preview. This means that the report template design will also be much faster. And for some really complex report, it may be even 15 times faster, we have found out. Next, since format configurations are no longer needed, practically that means that 50% of the problems fall away. And also no need for setting up electronic reporting destinations, because once you set Word, actually Docentric Word template, for the electronic reporting, let's say template, then you can use everything that you normally can use with SSRS reports. So basically all the print management, all the print destination, including Docentric enhanced print destinations, are all available to you, which basically is really quite a huge benefit. And basically also it means that there is much less stress because you can have the job done much faster. Okay, now when we talk about the customization process, first two steps are the same as previously, because we need to get the model mapping running on top of data model to get the data, but then we intercept this data in the Docentric pipeline. Basically, we need to set some electronic reporting and configurable business document settings in Docentric, and then create what we call the DSP file. That's the file, Docentric data source package file, which contains the data schema, the labels, and some test data, which we use in the template to design and to test. Then we design the Docentric template. Afterwards, we add this new template to Differ65 and activate it right away. And now I'm going to show how this is done. Okay, we can start from scratch. That's one way, but we have also provided some already made replicas for most commonly used reports. So I'm going to use that one for starter. And the first thing I need to do, I need to get this DTSP file so that I can start the design and that I can get all the changes which I have introduced. So in my setting, this is, I go to the Docentric workspace now. Here is the list of reports which I have registered in Docentric. Now I already am using the selection for the sales invoice. This is what I am interested in right now. And here I will need to set, first I need to tell where to get the configurations from. This is already done. I have selected that I want to use our Meetup data model and the matching model mapping. That's the first thing. And the next thing is I want to set generation options. This one is going to generate this DSP file, which I will be using later for the designer. So I set these settings, and then I'll go and also modify the print management, because right now the print management also doesn't need to be set for electronic reporting, but I just set it for SSRS report. So the report format is SSRS. And that's enough for now. Now I will just go and run the report so that I get the DDSP file. I can run the original as well, because the template that I'm going to see as the produced report is not really important. What's important is the DDSP file, which will be downloaded. Okay. All right, so this is the resulting report, but I'm not really so much interested in that one. I'm interested in this one, in these things here. So let me open this in folder to show you what I've got. You see here I have got two DDSP files, and one of them is for configurable business documents. This is the one which contains all the information I need. If I open it quickly, since many of you are technical, you see this is XML file, basically, which contains everything Docentric needs to know in order to use this template. These are the general data about company, about current worker. This, as you can see, is human readable. These are fields. These are value in the fields. Then, besides general data, I also have the main data, where again, so this is the record. Then we have some sub-records. Then we have fields and values and so on. So there's everything I need to know. And this is also some sort of debugger, because I get all the data that were produced by the report, and I can see whether there are values, whether these values are correct, whether maybe there are no values. And if there are no values, I can then figure out, okay, is it because I made a mistake, or maybe there's really no data, and so on. So this is really the first step to debugging. And now when I have this template and this DDSP file, I will now open the template. So the template, I will start with the replica, which we prepare out of the box. So I'm going to open it. So this is the way how the template looks. I've designed it now in Word using Docentric AX Designer. And here at the side, basically, I already have the data that is part of this replica. Now, this data doesn't contain my changes yet, because this is done using the standard configuration. Now, I need to make sure that I provide the data, and the data will be now taken from what we have just generated. So this is the configurable business document DDSP file. When I open it, I will see that right now I have my customized fields already available. I have the item image, is item image present, item image is string. So you see, it's as easy as this. Practically, this is the configuration, the data model configuration in Word, loaded with the data and also with labels. So I can now play with this, and I can now start binding the data source with my actual template. And the elementary is actually already showing me which things have been bound. And I can now start clicking on the elementary, and I see which part is selected, and that's actually the content that is pointing to from the elementary. I have labels, I have fields, I have some conditional logic in this case, and if I see the conditional logic, I immediately can understand what it is doing. So in this case, I'm checking if this code is containing any content. And if, let's say, this regional code is this one, so I can create all kinds of conditional content, very flexible. And the best part is that I can also turn the live preview on, which is immediately showing me the result. And if I would have a separate monitor, I could actually dock it into another monitor. And as soon as I change anything here, it's basically modifying also the actual result. And I'm now working offline because I have loaded the DDSP file, which I have previously generated in D365FO. I can now play with this data as I want. I can even modify the data on the fly if I want to. I can just go here and I could see the data, and I could then modify it. I could modify this value, for example, if I wanted to. So it's really, really user-friendly. Now, let me do the modification that I want to do. But before I do any changes, let me now save it under a different name, so that I will already have it under the name as I wanted. And I will just call it with images. So I already got one with this name. I'll just overwrite it, replace, and now I will show you how to work. So if I quickly show you how this document is working, as you can see, it's quite complex because, sales invoice is complex document. All this purple content is conditional. And for example, here I have the if tagging element, and here I see what it is doing, so what it is controlling. So the purple is all conditional content, which is actually displayed or not even included in the resulting report. This pink content is repeating content. So this is the list, which basically iterates through the list of records. And then according to whatever I have set here, it is then giving me the results. There's also lots of conditional content here under the list because some parts are just shown if they exist. And what I will do now, I will now insert a new row here where I will prepare the space for my image. Not list, but actually I want to insert the row. So I'll just start like this. Insert the rows above. Okay, so I have inserted the row. I'm going to resize it to what I want to use for the image. And here I will then insert the image. This is the image tagging element, so this is one of the tagging elements. This is how you add new content. So field would bind to strings, strings, numbers, and dates. List would bind to the repeating content group as well, summary field as well. Image would bind to the images. So this time, when I click the image now, the system is asking me, okay, where do you want the image from? And I say I want it from this item images string, and that's all. I just bound it. And now I need to make sure that this row will not be growing. So I need to use stable properties from Word, which will fix the row height to exact size. And the last thing is I just need to select this whole row and make it conditional. So the if tagging element is now going to control when this row will be displayed at all. And I just bind this to the is image present field, which is one of the fields among my variable fields, and that's it. I can now, after I have done it, I can immediately do the preview. If I had the live preview on, I would immediately see it, but now I can also click it here, which will open it in PDF. And as you can see, it's all there the way as I expected. And that's all. I have finished my design. As you can see, it was really very easy. Now I save it once again and close the Word, and I will now activate it in D365 FO. Activation is a matter of minute. So let me show you how to do it. I go to these settings where I have Docentric reports. First of all, generation options, I will now turn this setting off. I don't need it anymore. And now, okay, here, let's say that we don't have it here. I have it from previous, so I will delete it. Okay, so I will just start like it is now. This is the one that comes out of the box. So this is the SSRS replica, the Docentric replica for sales invoice. And now I will be adding my electronic reporting template. I'll give it a new name. I will call it with images. And I'll add CBD so that I will know that this is configurable business document. CBD. Okay, I'll give it this name, save. And then I will attach the template. I'm going to store it to Azure Blob Storage, where the system will find it. And now I point to my replica, which I have just created. Okay, now it is loaded and basically ready to go. The last thing I will do is I will now modify print management settings. I can go directly to print management settings from the Docentric setup. And here, okay, I already have the SSRS, that's okay. In the print destination settings, I have selected the Docentric settings screen, and here I will point to my replica with images. So that's all it takes. And now I can already run it. Okay, let's try our luck. Use print management. Now we should be getting this new template to screen. So here it is. The PDF result of our template. Now, Docentric also offers quite a bit of improvements in print management as well. Just to mention a few of them and to show you what options we have got. For example, in Print Archive, there is, let's say, the possibility to set some notes, so you can select the templates for screen as well. Then Printer is offering you the selection of the default printer, which basically can be assigned to each user individually. Then File is really offering many options. For example, you can save to Azure Blob Storage, Azure Files, SharePoint, attachments, so basically store on the other records in D365, and for the on-premise, you can also use the file system. You can have, for example, under the Azure Blob Storage, you can use dynamic generation of folders, and the same thing can be also done for the Azure Files and SharePoint. Azure Files is interesting because Azure Files can actually be mapped to your drives. So you work with Azure Files just as like you would be working with your local drive or your network drive. So it's interesting. Output format supported this in Docentric, and you can always include placeholders, which basically contain the values from the running report, as you can see them here. So these are custom placeholders, but there are also some standard ones, and you really have quite a bit of options. For example, if you wanted to include the invoice ID as part of your file name, you would just select this placeholder, and you'd go back and insert it where you want it to be in the file name, for example, like this. So it is really quite flexible, and emailing is also very well supported. You can have the attachments, so the attachment of generated report. You can have copy recipients, blind copy recipients. You can control what the receiver sees as the sender account. And we also support the generation of rich text content, which is HTML based. So any fancy HTML content can be inserted here, and the email body would actually look exactly how you have designed it here. Okay, so that would briefly be what I have wanted to show today, not to be too long, maybe just for a wrap up. And then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If I just show this slide now, which sort of is the result of the experiences which we have had, when to use standard electronic reporting and when to use Docentric electronic reporting. Basically, standard, if you have some simple templates, simple modifications, okay, then standard is fine. If you need Excel output as a must, then standard is the only option. And if you don't have some high design requirements, for example, if the company doesn't require some sophisticated theme and things like that, then okay, you can do it with standard. As soon as you have some complex design requirements, for example, complex template with complex logic, high design requirements, and if you need to integrate it with print management because you are already using extensively print management for business rules and the ways how you want to automate output management, in that case, Docentric electronic reporting or just Docentric standard with SSRS replicas is probably the way to go. So that would be my part. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some questions in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't see the chat.
Yeah.
Let me quickly
Maybe
open
Jonas,
it.
Do you want to open your mic and just ask?
I can try to. Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I work at a company called Unibake, which is one of the biggest bakery groups in Europe. We have fresh and frozen units. So fresh breads is the bread you buy if you go to Lidl and pick up a loaf of bread. So imagine each little store needs a piece of paper for them to be able to receive this bread. And we have about an hour or two to print these papers. We don't do this in Germany. This is just kind of to visualize it. We looked at the configurable business documents to kind of replace our current output management solution an old ERP, but we chose not to do it because it looked too complex. We had a hard time finding partners that could support us, and we were concerned about throughput. So let's say that we needed to print 6,000 packing slips in 1 to 2 hours. Do you think this solution could support us?
Well, your requirements are quite high, so that's true. I would need to verify that. I know that we have large customers with high throughputs, but we don't really work immediately with the end customers. Most of the time, we work through partners, and for such customers with high complex and let's say high requirements, usually the partners take care of everything, because this is not just a matter of one single piece of the story, but that's the whole system needs to be properly configured and adjusted and everything else. So I would say that it would be an interesting challenge, and maybe if your implementation partner can contact us and we can figure out and if they explain how they would see the solution to this, then we can see how Docentric would fit into the whole story. Basically, Docentric is just responsible for reporting, and here there's lots of other reasons. I mean, if you would be going with SSRS reports, we can just expedite them a little bit, but still, the SSRS pipeline needs to run because Docentric sits on top of it. Docentric just replaces the report generation. The same thing with electronic reporting. So the format and the mapping configuration needs to run, and then Docentric takes over. Docentric by itself is very fast because we really optimize it. But still the data needs to be read, and this is something that is done in the standard part, either electronic reporting or SSRS reports. So if that standard part can be accelerated to the point that fits your needs, I think then it would easily also fit Docentric in the story. But if you have the problem with reading the data fast enough, then it would potentially be the problem with Docentric solution. But it's a good challenge, so I would invite your implementation partner or yourself to contact us, and we would see what could be done.
Yeah, and it is also an interesting challenge for our current ERP solution. So, what in terms of reliability, is it based on the document routing agent, the printing part itself, or do you have your own?
The printing part is based on document routing agent. We are actually thinking of creating our own document routing, but this is really a complex thing, and probably it's a year or two away. So at the moment, we rely on document routing agent, which is potentially also a problem with such a high volume printing.
Yeah, and we try to set it up just for label printing, and I'm not really too impressed of it. So I'm sorry for the Microsoft guys on the call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any partners that you recommend?
Well, we work with lots of partners. So, I mean, to recommend somebody, that's really a quite unpleasant job. I think, I mean, we cannot really recommend. I mean, if you come to us and ask us, do you have some experience with this and this partner, then we can say yes or no. And what do we think about them? But just to recommend somebody, it's really hard for me to just say a name, out of the blue.
But it's not like FormPipe that recommends Tabella, at least in Europe. I think they are a preferred partner.
Yeah, I don't think if we have worked with them yet. But I would have to contact our sales team in order to have more details. I don't know all this partner stuff.
But interesting. Is it okay if I reach out to you after this meetup?
Yes, sure. I would be happy to.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I would have two. Thanks, Albin.
Yeah.
First, easy one. If I have simple requirements, but high requirements regarding design and would like to work with Word better than Excel, would it then also be a solution, or does it have to be complex, the requirements?
Well, I mean, any kind of requirement can usually be easily met using Word. So if the Excel output is not a requirement, if you just want to get PDFs and nice looking documents, then I would definitely go for Word. And Docentric is really very, very powerful here. Our designer is out more than 10 years and we have really polished it quite a bit. And we know, I mean, sometimes we see partners doing reports that we can hardly believe that they are possible to design. So really, Word is incredibly powerful. And if you have a little bit of imagination and if you just do things right, then you get amazing results indeed.
Okay. And there's still a free version to start with, right?
Yes, we have a free version. You can always start with that one. That one doesn't support document templates creation, but it supports all other goodies like emailing, file print destinations. Actually, it improves the standard quite a bit. And it is free and it is going to be free. And even with every release, we keep adding some free features as well. So it's not something that, you know, stands somewhere on some point. It is also alive. Okay.
And the important question is, when I now looked, you realize this German standard Zugpferd in Dynamics, and you Google for it. The only thing you find is Ludwig's post from 2020, I think. So my question is it still correct? Do you need, can you work with the Microsoft template for PEPAL and X-Rechnung, or is there an extra template needed for this German format for e-invoicing? Yeah.
Maybe I can try to answer first before Ludwig. Now, as far as electronic invoicing is concerned, this is something that's probably going to get more and more traction. Some countries already have it as a requirement, especially for dealing with garments. And the point there is, okay, one thing is XML standard, which is basically defined and you cannot really modify it, you have to apply it. And the second thing is visual presentation, which is just a document you generate for the visual presentation of your document. So you have electronic data and you have the visual appearance of that data. And that visual appearance can be, for example, a Docentric template, because you just attach it so that somebody can open it and view it. And everything else is basically defined in the regulation. And I think that Microsoft updates this electronic invoicing standards so that according to which localization you need, you then apply that localization and you already have the e-invoicing supported using it. So that's how it is done. And if not, Microsoft will probably come with some solution that is going to cover your need. Docentric here is just the way how the document is going to look like when the user will open it and preview it. And it is just attached as a PDF usually. Maybe it's a PDF archive standard. Depends on what kind of requirement there is. Okay, maybe Ludwig, if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, maybe Andreas, I can connect you with the product manager responsible for that, so that you can get a first answer to your question and a confirmation. Yep.
But so the answer is not quite. It's part of the invoicing standard template from Globalization Studio. This Zugpferd thing.
I would say it's available in standard.
Okay.
But to get a confirmation, I would like to connect you with the product manager.
Well, I don't want to steal the time from the next speaker. If anybody has questions, you can always contact me later. So my email is albin.lotrič@docentric.com. You can.
Yeah, I think, can you put it in the chat again?
Yes, sure. I will do it right away.
Thank you so much, Albin, for taking the time.
No problem. My pleasure.